like whether you guys are all like students, right?
Yeah, we're all students, mostly high school, but also I'm an undergraduate student.
Oh, I see. So most of you are high schoolers. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much um for turning on the camera. And I'm gonna just to go on start to introduce myself then. Actually, let me see whether I can also let me reshare it actually because I wanna see whether I can. Okay, I'm gonna reshare it. Okay, so this is the session three. So we are learning about lesson planning for engaged teaching. So once again, my name is In Jung Jo. I'm an international intern at 21st Century Teachers. Also a PhD candidate in education, as Raisa nicely put and introduced myself. Originally from South Korea, so 안녕하세요. Who are those who are learning Korean? um, so yeah, first of all, I would like to actually ask you, when you hear about engaged learning, what comes to you in mind? Anyone? You can unmute yourself and then tell me, or just raise your hand and then we can talk about together. I think, yeah, PJ.
I think that engaged
I think
learning
that engaged.
involves oh, may echo po yung there's like an echo of my voice. I got distracted, sorry. I think engaged learning involves a lot of activities to really get students I try not to say engaged in my definition, but a way of getting students active and really working their brains instead of just a normal classroom setting where they're just a listen it's just a speaker listener type relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I actually, if you don't mind, may I ask your own experience, whether you have ever experienced about, engaged learning in your school experience?
I think in my school, engaged learning is very much encouraged. I think a lot of teachers usually employ engaged learning techniques to make their lectures more engaging since it does really work for me. I have this one teacher whom they really use activities in order to get you
Mm,
to understand concepts. And I think it's a much more effective way of teaching because if you're given a particular concept that's hard to grasp, when you kind of remove the abstraction of like what's it called? If you're teaching a more abstract concept, for example, it's much easier to grasp when there's a physical kind of activity that you can associate it with. So for example, we were learning about this is gonna get a little bit technical, but you were learning about sorting algorithms in one class. And the
mm,
teacher physically made us kind of move around and then physically
mm-hmm.
moved each and every one of us like in a way that the sorting algorithm would do. So in that way, it kind of concretized in my brain like how these sorting algorithms work and stuff. So I think it's a very effective way of teaching.
Yeah, that is very correct. Anyone else? And thank you for sharing your experience, PJ. Anyone else like to share your thoughts about engaged learning? What would be your way of defining it, or any experience that you may have? It's very quiet. I think it's like, it's in the morning. No one? Yeah. Am I just going to the next slide then? Okay. Um, I'm not really sure about whether the Philippines is actually employing the engaged learning throughout the country. But when I'm actually recalling my own experience in Korea, oftentimes it's very much one-side direction. The students are normally the passive learners, and then the teachers are giving out the content, right? And we would like to somewhat change that power dynamics in this teaching and learning experience in the program. So what PJ nicely put, it's actually called as teacher-centered course design, right? So it is very much of like a traditional course design that really centers teacher as the primary agent of learning. So really focusing solely on the content delivery and testing. And then the learning goals are defined last. So when you actually see this, like, the arrow here, number one is like the step one, right? So the teachers are thinking about, okay, I know this much of knowledge. What do I have to know? What do I need to teach, right? And that what do I think it is important in the field that I would like to teach for my students? And what kind of activity then has to be involved? It's really like, centering the teacher first. And then, okay, I would like to like, share this knowledge, then what kind of assessment that I need to have and give to the students. And okay, then what should I teach them in this unit and what should I teach them in this class? So everything is kind of like follow the traditional order. And that said, the course may fail to develop the real skills of the students need or expect. So if you're really thinking about if you're in the restaurant and you're not really asking the students about what kind of food that they want, it's more of you're being a chef and then giving out your best cuisine that you would like to give, which is okay. But if you're really wanting them to be translating their own skills and knowledge to their real life, then you might need to really centering the students' voices and needs and interests, right? So here the problem is the learners are oftentimes are treated as the passive and uniform learners. Okay. And so what PJ also nicely explained, it's called a student-centered course design. And this is what we are aiming for. Okay, so it's basically really changing the power dynamics, seeing the learners as active and the unique participants, unlike the teacher-centered course design. So here we are shifting the arrow and then starting from what is the goal. So it's a backward design. So starting with the learning goals and the framing design from the student's perspective. So when you see that, the number one, the step one is what will students be able to do by the end of the course, right? And then you're really now thinking about the learning objectives, and then assessment, learning activity, then goes to content. So it is different from what teachers are previously done, the teacher-centered course design. That's more likely the teachers thinking of, okay, this is what I know, I'm gonna teach this. But this one, student-centered course design, is more of what the students would like to have and learn, right? So this is very much a different power. So here is the engaged learning. That's the definition that I brought. So the engaged learning includes a wide range of teaching strategies. It doesn't just like, teaching the textbook content, right? And so here students are active participant during the whole class time, and the students are directly involved with the instructor as well as their classmates through participation and collaboration. And then the variety of strategies are being used, such as the group work, individual tasks, the reflective activities, and so forth. Also, examples you can also utilize when you're teaching the students are like a journal writing, problem solving, peer discussion, case studies, role plays, and so forth. So everything that you think is innovative, you can also use it. Okay. What might be the best thing that if you are a math teacher and you can utilize, if you can actually choose one of the strategy or example, what do you think would be the best one if you're teaching math? Anyone? Oh, this is very quiet. Okay. Anyone? Okay, Dana, thank you.
Good morning po. I think when teaching math, usually for us, our teachers' usage of physical 3D models helped us actually gauge the activities, especially when it comes to lessons like the unit circles and costs and the like. Also, problem solvings, activities, would also help. Oh, also, we have these activities where we go onto applications like quizzes or Kahoots, and while discussing, we have to answer multiple choice questions. So, for the teacher to be able to understand or check whether we understand the topic at hand. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your insight. That is very great. What about others? Anyone else? Or should I call out? And I don't want to do that. Okay. No?
Young, there's a lot of question answers in the chat box.
Oh
Can
yeah?
you ask box? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And if you have any questions, please just like, ask me. Um, yeah, but so far there's no
PJ answered it's
questions,
an
right?
individual activist.
Sorry?
PJ answered in the chat box individual activities to get the students
Oh,
from.
okay, okay. Oh, I don't think I am seeing. Oh, now, oh wait. Oh yeah, yeah, I'm seeing it now. Okay, individual activities. Okay, yeah, definitely. If it is a math, right? Okay. So, so when you're designing a lesson plan, here are the things. So we just talked about the engaged learning. You have to bring multiple strategies and activities so that the students are actually fully engaging and with a great interest, right? So here is kind of the sample when you are teaching students. So here you go, like topic, right? And the learning objective. So because when we discussed about the student-centered learning, the goal has to be the primary. So we are setting the goal first, relating to the topic, right? So setting the objectives, and then you're thinking about, okay, what kind of activities then should I implement? So here you go, the materials and resources in order for having such activities. And then you are setting out the activities. And then even like, introduction, direct instruction, guided practice, like one by one. Like the detailed practice preparation would be beneficial, right, as a teacher. And then the generalization. So after having this type of different activities, the generalization is kind of like, we resume together, we reconvene together as a group, and then translating what we learned to the real world issue. Okay, so for example, here, the generalization, facilitate the discussion, and so here the topic is the water cycle, right? So here now the generalizing the knowledge that we learned to encourage the students to share their personal experience, like really linking the personal experience and what the topic that we discussed, right? So not just like, ending the textbook form of content and passive learning. This type of engaged learning, not only utilizing different activities, but really generalizing and translating into the real life context would be really, really essential. And then now evaluating, because last week, I think you guys are talking about the assessment. So now, you are also evaluating the students as well as really checking how students are understanding. And if you're also, students need to evaluate your own teaching regarding what are the things that they are missing. Then if so, then they need to have an opportunity to ask, the question to clarify what they are missing. So this is the one of the sample. There are multiple different samples, but I'm gonna just to show the second one. This is actually the design lesson from TESOL. So it's very similar, but like, you can just structure it in a different way. For example, the one different is that this interaction aspect here in the column. So you're really even thinking about how would you structure your classroom? Would that be the class style, the pair up, or individual one, and so forth? And even like you can write down the assignment and homework that you're gonna give to the students, right? And even the time here. like how many minutes that you're gonna allocate your time. So it can be really, really systematically organized in that way. Okay. So from now, I'm gonna just to show like several different strategies that you might be able to utilize when you are teaching students. So the first one is the role swapping, and it's very self-explanatory, but it's basically asking students to be the teacher, and then it can be like one-on-one setting, or it can be as a pair or as a group, and then take turns in teaching each other about what they know. Perhaps if you're a teacher, you can like give out the lecture first, and then having them like role swapping activity, and so that they are like sitting in a circle and taking turns and teaching each other what they learned in that way. So I don't know how many students you're gonna teach. May I ask though?
On average, what we teach like 30 to 40. And then all of our tutors, we tend to rotate in a class. So it's never just one teacher to like 30, 40 students. It's also usually like 4 or 5 tutors in one class.
Okay, so 4 or 5
Yeah.
in one class with 30 different students. Okay, so then basically you can make like several different groups of students in different circular groups, and then really implement this role swapping, so that you can check. This is also a form of kind of way of assessing the students, really understanding whether the students actually understood the concept that you teach, right? Another thing would be the breaking up your lessons, and this is again very easy to follow. It's basically, if you're having a lesson, utilizing different activities, you can incorporate with the activities, videos, and the group work. So make the lesson to be exciting, right? Because children cannot really stay fully engaged if you're just like lecturing subject content for a long time. So again, mixing lecture alongside activities, and then discussion. So for example, if you are teaching a math concept, you're lecturing first, right? And then students can be pair up, and then solving the problems first, and then reconvene together to have the class discussion. So in that way, you're making different activities, and then making the class more engaging and exciting. Another would be the real world connection. It's kind of similar to the translation part and the generalization that we discussed previously. So it is mainly about boosting engagement with the real world examples and stories and the case studies. So bringing up like the real stories. So students are actually often asked, what will I use this in real life? Like the thing that I learned in school, how I'm gonna use that, right? So it can be really frustrating. So you can actually tell them, these are the things, and these are these are the skills that you can actually bring to the world, and then connecting the real experiences. So for example, or even like using the activity that is kind of close to the real world issues, just kind of like, so I put this like sari sari store. So kind of like setting up a classroom store with the play money to teach the economics, the budgeting, and the math skills, so then the students can actually understand, oh, this is how the money works. Or even like one step further, if you're teaching them about the financial literacy, for example, about how to save money, or how to invest money. I don't know whether invest money would be the real way, but like the saving money, for example, you can also utilize that kind of like the kind of classroom as the real life, like the bank, and then you can have the parents, you can have the students, and having a little role play in that regard. So making it a little bit more exciting. Number 4 would be the social play and then group activities. So try group activities like a board game. So bring up like, more of like engaging fun activities or group art projects, simple experiments. Because social play like this can really help the students learn to cooperate, communicate, and then solve problems together. So a lot of times that I utilize is actually the arts, right? So have children really paint the mural on a big sheet of paper, and then let them talk about their ideas, take turns, and work together. Or you can utilize even like origami paper. I used to use those origami before. You can also play music and then or making a dance together. A lot of my students in Indonesia wanted to learn K-pop. And by listening to K-pop, we learned Koreans. So you can actually utilize those things, right? So I think it's like, the songs are oftentimes, or the dances are oftentimes are a great means to, learn and exciting. So definitely you can use that too. Another one is the more of like interactive play with nature. So really asking students to touch and observe and talk about what is surrounding them. It can be a nature or it can be a built environment. It can be like, the buildings or apartments or the roads or anything that are surrounding them, the material world. It can really help the children to learn by exploring different things like plants, animals, and the seasons. So you can bring up more of like a sentiment understanding with that regard. So the example would be organizing a simple scavenger hunt, asking students to find a leaf, rock, or stick and describe how it looks and feels. So another one, storytelling and music. We already discussed the K-pop, but definitely please use that. And if you do need my recommendation regarding K-pop, let me know. So use the stories with the rhythms and the repetition, and songs with the movements. So making dances together. The storytelling, like such as like a writing poetry or writing playwrights and doing the role play together, that would be also very helpful and engaging. Or you can even like, making instruments together, right? So I think this one would be the last one that I brought, but the teaching with media, this one is more of the integration of technology. So I'm not sure about like the data, Wi-Fi, and the network, how strong that would be, the connection would be, or how accessible the technology device would be. But I think my own experience, I brought my iPad to play the song when I was teaching in the slums or in the rural area, or I made like a PowerPoint and then just to show like through the my iPad. So even like, kind of the simple way of using the technology, if the students do not have them, and that would be a wonderful way. If the students do have phones, however, you can also utilize certain applications to really like utilize those for the learning, right? So really incorporating technology here. So for example, showing a short educational video to introduce the topic and then conducting an interactive activity or quiz. This one, I just wanted to show more of like, because I'm an education specialist, I kind of just wanted to show a different terminologies or the strategies that the educators are used. So here, the child discovery learning or child-directed learning, shared learning for emergent curriculum, teacher guide learning, teacher direct learning, everything is kind of like, having a different strategy and different role. I'm not going to delving into that because that's not my main thing that I wanted to share today, but I'm just wanting to show this because what you are doing, what you are integrating, also kind of involving and requiring different position of the students and the teacher, if that makes sense. So just want to show that. And I brought several examples of somewhat I found as very like, engaging and experimental, but at the same time innovative, very, very simple to use, but effective, in my opinion. Okay, so this is from Muhammad Ayes from India. It's really utilizing simple available resources available in that community. And I think that is the key here. I'm gonna just to show.
3 plus 2 plus 4. Who is the winner?
Yeah. So what they mean, I was like 3 plus 2 plus 3. I was like calculating in my head. I couldn't even calculate. So they are really fast. So it's kind of like, very effective learning, right? It's very interactive too. Another thing that I brought, and I have several examples. This is the same guy, same teacher, who is now this time teaching English.
Everybody. Somebody. Anybody. Nobody. Everything. Something. Anything. Nothing. Everywhere.
Yeah, so here, again, the important key that I would like you to take away is that we don't need to have the fancy resources sometimes. You can think about what are the resources that you have at your home or at the community and really utilize that. It can be the stones, it can be the trees, it can be even the branches of the trees, right? So like anything can be our teaching and learning resources. So here, when you see that, they even, in the previous slide, they used the bucket, they used the chalk, they will just drew on the road or in the terrace of the building. So it can be very, very simple. So just keep that in mind. Of course, I also talked about the technology, but if it is not accessible, we need to find the alternative. So, and another example, I brought another simple example. So this one is in the US, I believe. This is the ESL teacher. So ESL means English for second learning teaching, right? Yeah. So let me show you.
Flashcard activity with feet, maybe? Let's go. My lesson was about school subjects, and here are the cards I used. I printed out single foot and also some feet. I placed them next to my flashcards, as you can see, and kids have to jump on 1 foot or 2 feet following the cards and chanting the word in the flashcard. It's a super enjoyable revision / drilling activity. My kids just loved it, and I bet yours gotta love it too.
So just saying, I didn't input that because I love BTS. I'm just saying that the activity was amazing and innovative in a way, if you are teaching a foreign language, you can also kind of bring up with the little bit more movement related activity so that students can also learn while playing, right? So another one, the last example that I brought here with the same teacher here.
Flashcard activity with hands, maybe? Let's go. We need hand pointers, but you didn't have to buy the fancy ones. You can just DIY them yourself using skewers, right? Stick your lovely flashcards on the board, say a word, and the student who finds it first wins. It's super fun and it gets hilarious sometimes. Check out my channel for more, please.
So yeah, again, simple activity is worthwhile. That's what I want to actually share that. So the last one, this is the activity side. I kept mentioning to you and then emphasizing to you that we need to put ourselves into the student perspective, because what is important is the teaching and learning. Of course, the subject, the standardized the curriculum is important, but when we are also interacting with the children with the marginalized backgrounds, we really do need to understand and ask them what they want and what they need in their real life, so that the skills that they learn in the classroom can be translated and generalized in the real life. So here, I'm gonna give you the 10 minutes really thinking about from the student's perspective. So the questions that I brought here, okay, the first thing I'm gonna give you an example explanation about the activity that I'm thinking and imagining in my head is more of like, oh, now you're as a teacher designing a curriculum, designing a lesson, but from the student's perspective. That's the main goal. So thinking about what student may need. So now you need to like take away the teacher hat. You have to be the student. Okay, what do I need? What do I want to learn even from this class? Okay, what might worry me or make learning difficult? If you are really unable to speak English, for example, but you have to learn something in English, then English language would be my barrier, and that would be the difficulty, right? Or it can be like the you have to work on the streets because your parents are not really having sufficient money, so you have to help your parents. So it can be like more of the um, household difficulty in that sense. So thinking about what made you worry, and then why is this lesson important for me, right? And the learning objective, thinking about from the student perspective again, what should I be able to do by the end of this class or end of this semester, end of this course overall? And then teaching approach, how do I even like to learn? What kind of activity do I want to have when I'm learning, right? It can be song writing together with the peers. Um, or watching videos and stuff like that. And assessment, what kind of assessment that I would like to have to check my understanding, right? I probably wouldn't like to have SAT or anything like that. But if there's like a much more fun way, what kind of the alternative way that I would prefer to engage and then show that, okay, this is my understanding. Real world connection, once again, how can this learning connect to my school or home life or even to the society? Or how can this learning can benefit me or in the society or in my household overall in the long term? So I would like you to have like about 10 minutes to really think about and then discuss your ideas and thoughts. Yeah. Okay, 10 minutes. From now it's 10:50 p.m. to me. So yeah, 10 minutes until 11-ish. And please let me know if you have any questions, okay? Just make any lesson plan. It can be math, it can be science, or anything like that. Or it can be physical education, PE, Korean.
Injong, I have a message for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a message for you. Can we play a
Okay.
song while they're doing the activity?
Sorry?
Can we play a song while they're doing the
Oh,
activity?
yeah, of course. Go for it. We're open for anything. Anything interesting. And I think if you are more comfortable in speaking in the Filipino, I think Nyani can help translate a bit. Or I said. So don't feel hesitant, and if you can speak Korean, that'll be wonderful too. Feel free to do so.
Raisa will speak Japanese later.
Oh yeah. Speak Japanese with me then.
No, I can only do Mandarin, not Japanese.
Oh, Mandarin. Oh,
Go, Raisa!
you can do it. And for the activities, please, Raisa, if you'd like to also participate and go for it, I'd love to hear your thoughts too, or even Yani. Because you guys are all like experts in that field, rather even more than me.
Okay, Injong, I want to give you a trivia about the Philippine settings. Since we are in a archipelagic island, we have a lots of languages here. And the Filipino
Mm.
is the national language, but we have what we call local language or a native language for each place, not just only for the region, but with the barangay or something like that. So for now, we have 19 official language recognized by the
Wow.
Commission language of the or the Commission ng Wikang Pilipino. Commission of
Uh-huh.
Filipino here in the Philippines. So we have 19 languages. Aside from 19 official languages, there's additional, I guess, as of the moment, less than 300 local languages still.
Wow.
If that
Wow.
means.
Wow. And so what are the home languages like, for those students? Normally it's the dialect, right? The local language,
Yes, the local language. We call it mother tongue. It's the mother
mother
tongue. It's
tongue.
the first, yes, it's the first language they learned at home. So
Mm. So then
your par-
so then probably go ahead, sorry.
if the parents are both came from Visayas, sometimes we expect that the learners is speaking in Bisaya. So it can be a Siniguanong Binisaya. It can be a Hiligaynon. Hiligaynon is in Iloilo. They can be also Waray and Region 8. So there's a lot of,
Yeah.
when you say Visayas region, so we have a lot of language there.
Yes. It reminds me of Indonesia too. They also do have their own local languages, the dialect, or mother tongue. And then it make them really hard to follow the literacy education because it's not the major language, which is or the officially recognized. Everything is officially recognized, I believe, but I'm saying it's like, the instruction language or the textbook language, which is the Bahasa Indonesia. So for this activity, you can also think about those students if they are having a hardships when it comes to not being able to understand or follow the Filipino, which I believe is the instruction language,
We
right?
have, we have
The
what
school
we
language.
Yes, we have what we call lingua franca. When we say
Mm-hmm.
lingua franca, this is the majority language that the learners speak. So like for example, I know one place here in Metro Manila, we are the basin of the different languages. So we have from learners from Visayas, from Mindanao. So all learners they speak in a different language. Therefore, we choose to use the lingua franca or the Filipino where everyone can speak and understand.
Oh, I see, I see. Yeah, thank you. That's
And
really
since
very helpful.
Raisa telling us that Hiligaynon is her first language,
Yeah.
right? Try. Can you speak in Hiligaynon? Do you know how to speak Hiligaynon pa?
Yes,
I'd love
and
to
at home
hear.
actually, we use talaga ganon.
Oh, really?
Opo.
Kahit parinig ako. Charot.
Ay, wala ako balon na balon ko.
Well, and malam balloon mo. I know how to speak Hiligaynon also, but I'm
Oh!
not that kind of fluent. But yes, because I used to make the instructional materials in Hiligaynon during my previous work. So,
Yeah.
kabalo ko maghambal sang Hiligaynon. So,
Ay,
hindi ko,
kabalo ka! Pero jutay lang.
daw, pwede jutay lang, pero kaintindi ko all throughout. Kung
Okay.
mag-istoryahan sila sa Hiligaynon, hindi kid ko mabaligya. Kay,
Okay.
ano ko,
Gani daw man yung paghambal. Oo.
amo guys, so siguro kayang orthography, tapos ang
Oo.
material, so daw tanan dito, wala mo isa ka tuig, sige lang ko hambal sang Hiligaynon, kasi
Ah,
manood sang Hiligaynon. So,
mayo iligay nun mo.
okay, Injong, you ready?
Yes, like that.
Yes, everyone. Welcome back again. It's almost like I'm being a YouTuber here. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Ready to share? I would love to hear your thoughts. Again, this is interactive session. So if you'd like to, you're using lingua franca or your mother tongue, please do so. We have great translators here. So anyone would like to volunteer and then talk about if I were a student, these are the things that I would like to learn. Anyone?
May kimchi kay Injong yung unang magvo-volunteer. Darating yan dito ng November. Hope you guys meet her in person.
Yeah, I'll be there for 3 to 4 months, y'all. So don't hate me if I'm being there and then meet you often. Teach me Filipino culture and language. I'd love to learn, and I would, of course, want to spend time with you and then get to know you more. So, but please share your ideas or plans. Yes. Yay, PJ. Go ahead.
Hi. So my topic for the lesson plan that I made is on graphs. So it's not like your usual graphs like in science
Mhm.
or like in math. It's more like graphs as in there are nodes that are like connected and stuff. It's a concept in computer science. But actually I can draw it a bit to explain so that you guys have some context. I wanted to make mine
Yes.
more based on computer science because that's kind of like the field of not field but the subject that I kind of want to teach in the future. So wait. So something like this. I have oh no, my whiteboard is disappearing from the from the background. I'll just remove it for for a bit.
Yeah. No, you're
Wait.
integrating technology here. So
Yes,
that's
yes.
also the practice.
How do you remove the background? Oh, here. Okay. So it's something like this. You have nodes that are like connected with arrows and stuff like that. That's the basic concept of
Right.
graphs. And that's the thing that I wanted to teach with the lesson plan planning. So the main needs that the student probably would want to learn is the concept of graphs and kind of you can do algorithms with the graph, which basically just means you can do things with uh the nodes in each graph and things like that. So the worries that I included were sometimes the graph algorithms can be really complicated, and there are often a lot of things to keep track of when you're um kind of visualizing how each element plays in. So that's one worry that I wanted to account for. And then as for the importance of the lesson, it's very applicable to computer science. So I could, tackle on that. There's even a whole field for it. It's called graph theory. So I could
Okay.
discuss that as well. But the main concept or the main thing that I wanted to teach them that it's important is because it's kind of just like a general thing that you can use to represent real life. So for example, in networks of people, like you have friends, and then those friends have friends, and those friends have friends. It's like each person is their own node. And then those arrows are like relationships between people. So friendships, relationships, things like that. So it's there's this importance that it's like literally in the physical world, a way of representing things. So that's one thing you could tackle in importance. As for the learning objective and goal, as I mentioned earlier, they should be able to, by the end of it, go through the process of each kind of graph algorithm to retrace their steps and things like that. And as for the teaching approach, I think it would be really helpful to have a physical active activity, especially since CS usually is just like lecture, it's usually just a teacher on the board because it's very sciencey. So it's not very active. But if I have like a physical activity, then it could really get people to wake up, especially since in our school, CS time usually coincides with prime sleep time. So, just something of my experience, it's very good to have physical activities.
Yeah.
As for the assessment, um, I'm not very sure about this one since it's kind of hard to make assessments that are both like that can be like objectively scored and also like in kind of engaging. I was thinking, of course, written assessments could be um one option. But there's also a possibility of something like having an example on the board, and then they have to go through the
Mm.
algorithm themselves, talk
Mhm.
talk through the process, and then like you could kind of be like um it's kind of like they're teaching you back the topic. It's kind of like somewhat like an
Right.
oral exam, if you could call it.
Right.
That's like they show how the algorithm works with an example. So that could be a way of assessing how the student, or in the student's perspective, showing the teacher how
Mhm.
I learn. And then as for the real world connection, I think I already touched on this one, the networks, the real life human connections. So there are some ways of connecting it to real life concepts that I could use. And for the long-term benefits, it's a very applicable concept in computer science. So yeah.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's wonderful. Though, um, it's wonderful. Just wanna say, when we discuss, everything has to be according to the student centered learning, has to be coming from the goal, right? So I think like, when you spoke right now, you actually say these are the content. You started from that and then went to the goal, but think a little bit differently and set the goal first and then lesson plans alongside the activities as well as the resources. And think about whether the algorithm, the CS, computer science, it's crucial. I do understand. But asking your students and thinking from the student's perspective, whether it is necessary for them. Is it really necessary? For example, go ahead, PJ. Do you think it is necessary? Let me ask you.
It's a bit dependent on how you define necessary, because if it's necessary as in if maybe it's like it's a mandatory class, and then there are
Mm-mm.
like people who are like English majors, or people who want to be English majors and stuff. I guess it would not be so
Mm-mm.
applicable to them, but definitely for a person, an aspiring computer scientist or aspiring software engineer, it's
Right.
definitely going to be used in their like future careers.
Yeah, no, that definitely. And I'm a true advocate for that. Why am I saying this and emphasizing it? It's because we need to think about who are the learners, their own like demographic background and their own context. So if they are, for example, those students who I'm oftentimes engaging with, those who are living in urban slums, the first thing that they need, it's not really about the CS. It's more about like earning money or sustaining the living, right? So then what is the most important thing? Possibly it's something else. Possibly it's like a basic numeracy and literacy so that they can get a job. Right. So thinking about who are the target groups, but like, you just, PJ nicely put, it can be those students who are aspiring for becoming a computer scientist, right? So you already like, put that context. So definitely that would make sense, right? But if you are really like volunteering the teaching, the target group would be changing. So it's because certain things, perhaps like that's not really what they need and what they want. So that's kind of like the mismatch that as an educator, we really do need to think about, because there's always the disconnect between what we are learning at school compared to what the economy or the society needs from us. There's always like the disconnect. So but thank you so much for that, and I think definitely what you're sharing is very, very inspiring and crucial. What are the other people, other folks, anyone? Or Raisa or Yani, you can join the too. Okay, yay, Fiel.
Okay, hello. So, I'm just gonna jump right into it. So, the lesson I decided to create a lesson plan around is long division. So, I remember when would say I first encountered this topic, or rather, I encountered it with my peers when it was first introduced to us. It can be quite intimidating because um different from the usual like 1 plus 1 equals 2. It introduces like math, I would say, in 2 dimensions almost, or like an x and a y axis, almost like that, as in you're working vertically and also horizontally. So with regards to the goal I want to set, I imagine that if I were to teach long division, I would first start the class with a sort of introductory problem that has it as an underlying principle. So, for example, I would ask the class, if you have 100 pesos, which is your what we call baon or allowance for the week in school, so they can spend it for food or whatnot, how would you budget it such that your 100 pesos lasts 5 days? So off the
Mm,
bat, it doesn't really seem like okay, like maybe to a student encountering it for the first time, it doesn't really seem like, how do I connect this to math? So two objectives. Number one is to be able to or maybe three objectives, I don't know. Number one is to be able to understand the concept of long division. Number two is to be able to actually carry out long division with 3-digit numbers as the dividend divisor, I don't know. Divide
mm-hmm,
3-digit numbers by 1-digit numbers, and also um appreciate like its importance in everyday life. So
mm-hmm,
I'll be answering the questions now. So that is I would say for the needs and wants, what I would want, what from the student's perspective, what I want or need to learn from this class. With regards to addressing what might worry me or make learning difficult, I think would be not having the foundation like from previous lessons, because I think that's a common struggle that I see among students learning more relatively more advanced math. So
mm-hmm,
why is this lesson important? um I think that can be demonstrated by the example provided earlier. And then what should I be able to do by the end of the class or course? I think that is also set. And then how do I like to learn best? So what activities will make me happy, interested, and engaged? With regards to this one, I have like two ideas in mind. One is to have a sort of
game, although that could be like at the end of the lesson plan, or also like it would be like a sort of drill. So basically, it's how fast can you divide, sort of like the shorts that were short videos that were showed earlier. Um, with
Mhm.
regards to demonstrating like how they would actually divide stuff, I would probably just use like chalk or something that I can use to sort of separate the numbers. So for example, if we're dividing 120 by 5, I would put a sort of divider between the 1 and 2 and then the 0, so that they can take it like step
Mhm.
by step. And then I would go to like say another side of the whiteboard, and I would do okay 12 and then minus 5, etc. Although this can be further optimized to handle like bigger numbers, like for example, if the result would be 9 and you would have to draw a lot of fives. And then what tools or materials, I would probably just say like chalk or like a divider, something to demonstrate it um like almost kinesthetically. And how would I like to show my teacher what I understand? Aside from like being able to say complete an assessment that's objective, I think they could also go back to the introductory problem earlier and sort of give an answer to that, as well as maybe even I could give like an activity where they have people who have different roles and different budgets to work with and different ways to divide it, and they could be able to provide answers to that. And lastly, how can this learning connect to my school and home life? I think also how can this learning benefit me in the long term and how can I sustain it? So I think the learning can connect to their school and home life. So for example, they could help their parents with budgeting their monthly expenses, and that could benefit them in the long term, and it can be sustained just by that practice. But just in case, I could also provide materials that would allow them to practice from time to time. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Pia. Wow, that is very comprehensive. You already have like, the one session complete here. That's great. A lot of times, just kind of like a mathematics, there is a very different level in understanding between students, right? Those who are really, really interested in learning about the math, those who are dislike math, or who are unable to really follow the teacher's lecture. And so that what I do want is actually perhaps more of the individualized attention on top of that. So what you mentioned so far, explain, are wonderful. I think if I am being a colleague teacher with you in that same classroom, I will be a sub teacher or like a supporting teacher who is also helping those students who are unable to follow. Because we are kind of like picturing in the kind of classroom, then in working together in collaboration. I think that would be wonderful. And some sort of not one directional way of teaching them, but also really checking the students' understanding. And as we already discussed previously, swapping the roles, right? Maybe that would be implemented here. And then asking students, okay, now I taught you how to do division. It's your turn to teach me, right? And so some sort of like a role swapping would be great too. But thank you so much. Anyone else? I think we still have a little bit of time left. Anyone else? Maybe like some sort of the language learning. I wonder how that may look like. Now we have a mathematics, we have a CS learning, perhaps language. Can be English or can be like a little general literacy of Filipino. You don't need to be comprehensive. Just like, share like, if when I was young, these are the things that I would even like to have and stuff like that. Because for example, when I was learning English in South Korea, the thing that I've been so much focused on was grammar. So there was like no such a opportunity of like practicing speaking. And I actually started to learn how to speak English when I was in high school in the US. And so up until the time beforehand, there was no such a time that I could even be able to have such practice. Nowadays, I think like, people are using different technologies, applications, so they could actually being exposed into having such opportunities. But back then, no. So I'm wondering, when it comes to language learning, what might be a good methods and activity that you'd like to have? Yes, VL. Thank you so much to be engaged.
So I actually have a lot of, I would say, curiosities about language learning and actually just, I would say, linguistics in general, because that is one of my interests. Would it be okay if I, instead of answering as if I already made a lesson plan, I sort of just like give insight according to these guide questions? Like what,
Of
for what
course.
topic?
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, like mentioned earlier, I have a local language, like the language of my home province, or yeah, home province, and it's called Kapampangan. So I live in a place called Pampanga, and I am unable to speak the language actually. So actually, one of the things I'm gonna be working on hopefully soon is language preservation. But anyway, um so I guess I could answer these questions as a student myself. So, and one
Yeah.
thing that I struggle with, because I recently started learning it by just using it in conversations with my mom and sort of trying to be as accurate as possible, is tenses. So I would say Kapampangan has a bit of a similarity to the official language Filipino, but it's sort of like the way you conjugate the tenses, like the verbs, is sort of like
Mhm.
swap. So I would say what I would want or need to learn, like say there's a class and that's the lesson, is how to properly conjugate the verbs according to what context it needs to be. So if I need to speak in past tense, I should be able to like say it in past tense, present, future, and whatnot. What might worry
Mhm.
me or make learning difficult? I think I can offer a unique insight into this, and that is if I was learning in a class, like not just myself, with other people, it might worry me in the sense making mistakes might worry me, because I actually took a Mandarin elective last year, and that was one of like that was a concern acknowledged by our teacher, is being worried about messing up. And why is this lesson important for me? For example, I want to be able to engage with communities that maybe like only speak Kapampangan, aside from like wanting to keep it alive, of course. So what should I be able to
Mhm.
do by the end of the class or the course? So again, properly conjugate the verbs. And how do I like to learn best? So I would say I like to personally learn best by having a sort of quote unquote cheat sheet, or basically like a summary of the linguistic rules that apply to Kapampangan. So for example, I have a verb, and this is like the prefix or the suffix or whatever affix I need to add to make the verb correct. I would like to have something
Yeah.
like that. Or maybe I would also be able to like I would also be able I what? I would also like to be able to use the vocabulary in like a conversation accurately. So maybe the teacher could
Mhm.
set up an activity that's like by pair, where we try to have a conversation in Kapampangan. And what tools or materials do I want to use for learning? Like I said, maybe like the cheat sheet where it's like a summary of all the rules on like how to conjugate verbs. And how would I like to show my teacher what I understand? Actually, sort of like being able to converse with them, I think, is a way to demonstrate that. And how can this learning connect to my school and home life? I could be able to use the language at home with my mom, or for example, my relatives. I would say my relatives actually speak Kapampangan a lot whenever we have gatherings, so I would be able to understand the conversation and join in finally after never being able to speak Kapampangan. And benefiting me in the long term, I would say it benefits me because I'm able to connect with more people, and I can sustain it by using it whenever I can. So yeah, those are my insights on like answering as a student to these questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And I have some insights and also would like to share. One, what you mentioned that you can actually have opportunity to practice your kapumpangan, right? Kapampangan, with your relatives or family. And the one thing that I would like to highlight is that we oftentimes are thinking education and learning that are only happening within school, but it's not. If you're thinking about, you can actually like learn your manners, your culture, and everything at home. Even like language that you just mentioned. So really like thinking about everything surrounding you is their learning spaces, right? So you brought speaking with the relatives, that's like the one great example. That's like a learning space, learning opportunity, expanded and extended from the classroom. Because what I can also think about from my own experience, even though I said my speaking was bad when I was up until the middle school, even high school, um, my first English, almost the first, not the very first, but like almost the first learning English learning partner was actually a Filipino male who I was pen paling. I don't know whether you guys are. I think I feel so old now if I'm saying this, but I've been having this pen pal through email with him. So he was like, sending me an email about his work, and I was still like a student, so I was like, talking with him. These are the things that I'm learning with my poor broken English. But it was a great learning opportunity for me to learning about even what is adobo, what is the Filipino culture and stuff like that that he shared. He sent me so many different photos that he took with his relatives, families, and his workplaces. And so through that, not only learning about the language, I also could learn about different cultures. It really broadened my horizon. So I think that kind of informal learning, it's really, really crucial so that you can actually being the 21st century skills that that how the NGO it stands for 21st century teachers, that kind of like the skills you can also learn it, right, as the world's global citizen. So thank you. And then preserving language is really, really important, of course. And I think if you're making the cheat sheet, you can also distribute and disseminate it, what you made with your peers, and when you can definitely utilize it even when you are teaching the students, so that sustaining that and preserving the language, right, in the long term. So thank you. Oh yeah, so thank you, Pia. Now you know what pen pal is. I think it's not pen any longer. I think it's a typing, but yeah. And we are having the CS person. I'm really kind of embarrassed of saying pen pal at this time, but so thank you so much, y'all. So if you have any questions, we have just a server. Yeah, typing pal. Okay, last questions. Anyone? Regarding the lesson or anything that you'd like to ask in general, even about me, about yes, PL.
Hi. Wow, I feel I feel kind of how do I say this? I feel a bit shy now because I feel like I've been talking too much, but hopefully you guys don't mind. Um anyway, I have a question because like earlier it was mentioned about how languages are how the languages we speak can influence the learning process. So I just want to ask about like your personal experience with working with areas who may not speak the common like lingua franca of the country. Like how does learning usually take place in those kinds of scenarios, or sort of like what helps facilitate it if the instructor doesn't speak what language like the kids might learn more easily in?
Thank you, Fiel. That is a very, very great question because, and I would like to actually ask Nyani to speak a little bit more about, because she's more into the like linguistic education more than me, and she has like true life experience regarding that. But just if I'm like bringing up my own experience in Indonesia as a non-Indonesian who was engaging with the Indonesian children, um, of course it was very difficult. So I was always accompanying my Indonesian friend who could be the translator. If I'm bringing up with I was teaching English language at the time and then Korean language. So I made all those lesson plans in English. And I was like, asking my translator friend to be next to me. She was also herself was a teacher actually. So we are kind of like, collaborating together in a way, like if I'm saying it and then she translate, or sometimes she is like using her own like lesson plans and together. So kind of like in that kind of collaboration was, of course, it was difficult, but it was great in the sense of because it was an English class, the students could have a chance to speak with me and try speaking in English. So it was like a bit of like balance of like she's teaching more of the subject, and I am the one who is kind of like being the opportunity maker of like speaking, if that makes sense. But Nyani, would you like to like speak in here?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I can speak on behalf of my experience. When I was a kinder teacher, since I'm teaching in Pasay and the language that we use is Filipino, since we are in the NCR. So, PL, regarding to your questions, I have one student, a transfer student from Mindanao. So, he's a Bisaya. So, siniguan ng Bisaya talaga. And luckily, I'm Bisaya also, so I can speak directly to him, actually. So, what I did is, I give the instruction in the mother tongue, which is the lingua franca, which is in Filipino, then I'm going to translate that one to him in Bisaya. So, para lang makasabay siya. You know that one. Then, in the middle of the year, there's someone again, another one who transferred from Ilocos. So, Ilocano na yung bata. At hindi ako marunong mag-Ilocano. So, I don't know how to speak Ilocano. So, I'm Bisaya. I can speak in English. I can speak in Filipino. I can speak in all the languages except BARM in Visayas and Mindanao, but not in Central Luzon, especially Ilocano. So what I did, I find another teacher who know how to speak in Ilocano. So luckily, I have my co-teacher who is from Tarlac, and she knows how to speak in Ilocano. Therefore, I asked her, can you teach these children, or can you get these children to transfer in your school so that you can transfer and you can speak to him in Ilocano. So yun, that's why paano namin natulungan yung learners, how do we able to help that learner to cope up with the classroom settings and the environment that we have in NCR, given that all the children speak in Filipino and mag-isa lang siya na Ilocano. So I hope I answered your question, Bion.
No,
Thank
really, it's
you.
always, yeah. Thank you, Nyani. It's really about like, finding the right people, the committed people who can like work together with patience and, perseverance. That's really the key. Because the students, if you cannot understand like, your friends who can speak the language, you should be able to, help with that. So,
Yeah.
right?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Can I ask like a sort of follow-up?
Sure.
of course.
So, yeah, so would you like either of your like personal experiences, if you ever had to prepare like learning materials and sort of like distribute it to everyone, would the students receive it in the language they like speak, or was it like in the lingua franca and then they just like understood?
No, I prepared instructional materials to one. So, in the language that they used overall. So, in giving the instruction, dun lang nagkakaiba. But with the materials itself, pare-pareho sila.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for the insights.
But I think also like using all those like media forms, if there is anything, that would be great actually. For example, like if I'm teaching Korean, if there are like any YouTube videos, any songs that I can utilize, then like using those have been always helpful. So like, if you could find any kapang-pangan, any celebrities who can use that, and then having any interviews on the YouTube that you can utilize, go for it. So, or I think it's just kind of like, finding on interesting methods and interesting tools and content that makes student happy and exciting is the key. So for now, that's the end from my end. So thank you so much for your attention, and thank you for this opportunity for Raisa and Yani. And you can always find me through my Facebook account or even my email that I shared with you. So don't be hesitant. I'm always gonna be here.
Back to you, Raisa.
Okay. So thank you again, Miss Injong. I really enjoyed the presentation. Actually, I don't think I'm at the level of Miss Nani. I'm still in college. But I am taking I'm majoring in health sciences, but I'm taking a minor in education. And I found it really interesting because the techniques that you seem to be teaching were very aligned with the progressivist school of thinking. And I think it was also a very interesting contrast because since the techniques you're recommending were very student driven and student centered, it's different because I think the approach of the Philippines is a bit more essentialist. So there's a focus more on like memorizing the core or like the baseline basics of what the Philippine education system thinks is needed for its students. So I found that really interesting. Okay, so for now, I think we can proceed to awarding you with your certificate of recognition. Okay, so the certificate is awarded to Ms. Injang Cho for rendering her invaluable service as our resource person for today in the conduct of one of our sessions for Project CLAP, or the Community-Based Learning Acceleration Program for the youth volunteer tutors of our beloved organization called MITSA Tutoring. So it's given this day on October 12th of 2025 via Zoom. Okay. So thank you again, Ms. Cho. Please give her a round of applause and thank her for her time. Okay. And then that's pretty much it. I guess we can take a photo before we all leave. Yeah, okay. So if you guys can turn on your cameras, that would be great. But if you can't, heart reacts are fine as well. Okay, so I'll count to 5. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so everybody smile in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Do we have any post that you'd like to do, Miss Nani?
Unless they have some questions in
Oh,
relation to with the October 25th, which is the actual demonstration.
okay.
I'm pretty sure lahat naman clear, I know, all the instructions given, how to prepare the lesson plans. Injong, Miss Injong or Teacher Injong. I forgot how to call. Okay, so lay down two kinds of lesson plans, right? The first one is the sample lessons plans that I gave you last year, and then the other one is from TESOL. So to you guys, to what do you want to use? Feel free to choose. It's depend upon your choice if what kind of lesson plans you want to prepare for October 25th. Do you have some questions in relation to our upcoming demo teaching on October 25th? If nine, then Raisa, I guess we call Sir Owen.
Okay, so since we're done with the session, before we formally end the session, I'd like to call on President Owen Chu from Santa Club of Quezon City to deliver the closing remarks of today's session.
Sir Owen, are you able to deliver your closing? And we don't have Press Daisy from JCI Perles Pasay. Oh, okay. Ayun! Mukhang wala si Sir Owen. Pero nandito siya, naka-join siya sa atin, but I don't know. Huh? Okay. Sige. So, guys, I'm going to send you the evaluation link for Miss Injong for her talk. And then please answer the evaluation link. Bigay ko na lang kay Raisa para masagutan